Okay, well, I could probably talk till noon myself, so that's not a good way to start, but 2 minutes, that sounds good. Basically, there were a number of about 200 members, including children, from Redeemer Lutheran Church that decided it was time to start a new congregation. And they began with a first service in a public park, which I did not attend, but remember Pastor Otto Schlegelmilk at Shannon Park. And that was the first service. Uh, about 6 weeks later, I was asked if I would come out to this group to lead worship on weekends because I was going to school, earning a master's in business administration at the University of Minnesota. And I said, yeah, I could fit that in. So the first service that I came to was at the middle school in Apple Valley. And then Jim Learman, who was the chairman of the elders, told me next week we're going to be at a different school. And I thought, well, do you move around every week or what is the deal here? But we moved to Cedar Park Elementary School in Apple Valley and we worshiped there for 3 years. So that is, and then as we were talking here just a little bit off the air, uh, there was a committee formed, and that committee found land here in Lakeville, which we purchased 10 acres to get started.
The only thing I remember in Messiah was we, the name had come up, and they contacted Messiah in, let's see, in Minneapolis to see if they would object to us using the name Messiah, and they said they didn't. So that's the only thing I remember about how come we were named Messiah. We were not part of the first ones that met in the park, but some of you remember Harold and Gladys Grovender. And the Grovenders, as well as us, had been at Our Savior's, and Gladys had been, I think they were part of the group that was in the park, and Gladys called me and said, we're going to start a new church in Apple Valley, Lakeville. And Chuck and I decided, okay, we're part of it. So after that, we were also attending it and never regretted it.
I can give you a different slant on how things. Messiah, the spark that started in Messiah started on Mother's Day, 1985. Our daughter, who was studying for a PhD over in Wisconsin, was home, and she and I and Barb went to church that morning, and Pastor Cody gave a sermon that just made him furious. And our daughter and my wife weren't different because she got talking to other people, and they I don't know where he came from, but it was, on wives, submit yourself to your husbands. And I don't know, maybe he came from a small church that, where Barb's mom came from. They used to have the men on one side and the women on the other side. So, but anyway, but there was enough people that felt like my daughter and my wife felt, and so Darlene can trigger off. But luckiest thing that we ever did was have Tom Reese step in, and that's when things got rolling at Messiah.
My family, my wife and I, we moved to Minnesota and ended our house on New Year's Day, 1985. So we went to the closest Lutheran church, which was where most of the founders were. And we found that to be interesting. There seemed to be a problem there, but nobody was eager to share. It took a while. Finally, they split off, and we were left not knowing whether to stay or go with the rest of you. And Deb and I watched for a few months, and in the fall, I said, look, these people are committed. they're willing to walk away and start a new church. I said, they have faith that is beyond anything I can imagine. We got to get in with this. And we came in when we went to the school, and Duffy Hartle and Elaine and my wife, Debbie, we went to the school. We were the ones that knocked on the door. The janitor came and let us in. And Duffy and I started putting down chairs, and the ladies went and started with the coffee and stuff. And that's the way it was for quite a while. And you know what? It was awesome, just an awesome time. Wonderful people. I am so glad we did what we did.
Just to kind of add to that a little bit, since our group was smaller, we needed everybody's help to get everything done, to get all those chairs set up, to make the coffee, to put everything away, and just to have all the activities that we wanted to have. So there was a place for everybody, and that included me, a young mom with school-age kids, and I really found a place to be at Messiah.
We also, when we started, it was also kind of easy because we had people there that had been head elder, had been ushers, had been musicians, congregation, head of the congregation and stuff. So they've all had experience in some area. So it was easy to kind of put us all together and to get us all involved.
Since we were meeting in the school, we had no place to have an office, so we opened one of our rooms up for an office for the church. And we had the junior choir and the senior choir meet weekly. And it's interesting, our kitchen is not large, but when you have 18 people and all they want to do is come and have coffee in the kitchen afterward, it gets pretty crowded.
I remember having Board of Education meetings in our basement. And Pastor would be there too to help us.
So we went to Camp Omega and for the women's retreat, and there were probably about 20 of us, and it was just a really open time. We worshiped outside on their Sunday morning on their open platform, and I remember just being very thankful and grateful for all of the people that were there. I also remember someone screaming one point, and Elaine coming down the stairs laughing, and she goes, "I bought a fake poop and I put it in the bathroom. It's hilarious." We did skits, and just Bible studies and talked about being women of faith. I remember it being a really great time.
Yeah, well, of course, we had just at the school, we had just the one service. And it was a very celebratory service every week. Lots of great singing and good preaching from the standpoint of really mission oriented. And I was sharing earlier with some of our folks that the people who formed the congregation had a little bit of grieving to do because they were leaving a church that was dear to them. But that didn't register with me that well. And all I could see was opportunity. I thought, man, you're planting a church in one of the fastest growing suburbs in the whole state of Minnesota. And people did, even while we were in the school building, came to worship with us that were guests, and we grew rapidly. So that by the time we moved out here, we had a wonderful architect fairly early on, and he designed what we have now here, this entire plant. But this entire plant was a few $1 million ahead of where the congregation was financially. So I believe it was Vern Lovestead, and Vern was the chairman of that committee. We all owe a great debt to Vern Lovestead. He said, why don't we build what is the narthex, just that little frame building? And we could start there and use that as our worship center. So that's literally how the decision was made to just build that piece of it, which was affordable. And we finished that and moved out of the school at the end of the third year of the congregation's existence. Well, that little space was not large enough to have everybody at one service. So that's where the two service thing started right off the bat when we moved in here. And we used that space as long as we could. But, it wasn't too many years later that there was an addition put on for education purposes. And then finally the sanctuary itself was built. And I guess it's about 32 years ago that sanctuary was completed, because I was talking to a member who said the carpet's 32 years old. That's why it's being changed out today. But Bill was on that committee as well. And I think Lois was on that committee too. Oh, Gary was. That's right. Gary was on it.
What was that guy's name? Tall guy, thin. He left the church. John Beckendorf and Gustafson. What was her first name? Joanne. Yeah, she was on it. There was one woman there that I can't remember the name of, and then there was, I think, another guy that. Let's see. There was Vern. There was Gary. There was myself, John. I guess that was about it for the building committee. Oh yeah, the congregation would respond to what we had in mind. There was no real bickering or anything about what the plan was. Oh yeah, Roger Belcher. That's right. Yeah, and so everything worked quite smoothly. We had good leadership from the pastor, and we worked on it, and we worked very closely with the architect to make adjustments and changes, and everybody seemed pleased.
And also, I don't think we had many over 60. It was a very, very young congregation at the time when it first started. Basically, it was traditional, using the hymnal.
Well, it's not the greatest thing to remember, but that cross above the altar is in memory of our son. And that happened in 1988. Yeah.
Part of the group was Bob and Patty May, who I think our first meeting was in their backyard. But they were very involved in music, and Patty wrote a number of presentations for the junior choir. She wrote them and she directed them, and we did it here at Messiah, but we also did them in nursing homes. She wrote all the music for it.
Part of a church that has committed people is beyond your imagination. And we came here and we decided we had to add on, and we got linked up with some group called Laborers for Christ. I helped put shingles on. I helped put that wall and the insulation in. I mean, we had the most phenomenal Saturdays. We did this all day Saturday, and they had work lined for us. I have nothing but wonderful memories about people working together, and we would all take lunch, grab hands, pray together. It couldn't have been better.
In regard to that, my husband, Chuck, was one of them once. When the weather got to a certain point, they had to move out with their travel trailers or motorhomes. And so Chuck, and I forgot who the guy was that worked with him, they then, shall we say, sort of became the supervisors. And I know, again, that was something my husband really enjoyed doing at that point. So it was once, yes, they did the work, but our members, once the Laborers for Christ left, our members took over and completed what had been started.
One other person's name that should be mentioned was the crew chief for that Laborers for Christ, and his name was Dale Vogt. And Dale, I had known Dale before coming here to Messiah. Dale was a vice president for a very large construction company in town, and when he retired, he determined that he was going to serve the Lord through this program called Laborers for Christ. And it didn't take long for Dale to become a crew chief. And fortunate for us, he actually made his home in Egan. So Dale it was a welcome assignment for Dale to help us build the church down here. And I've known many of Dale's children for many years, and they all have fond memories of their dad, as do we here at Messiah.
And I just wanted to add, I remember my dad, mom, and I, my brother, all coming and helping build the church and be part of that construction. And I remember stopping at one point and just looking and thinking, you know, we are physically building the family that we're spiritually becoming. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Let me just say a little bit about that. As a number of folks are chatting here, the congregation really was the mission. We were growing like crazy, and a lot of mission activity was taking place. But I really remember this congregation being committed, and I didn't have anything to do with it, but they wanted to make sure that 10% of all the financial gifts that came into the congregation would be sent out for mission. So 10% from the get-go went to other, missions that were happening either locally, regionally, or worldwide. And that was a big commitment. A little bit later after that, we proposed an 11th% even, and that we would use that 11th% and let the congregation vote on what they wanted to support, primarily locally. So I've noticed over the years in the bulletins here at Messiah that we'll say our mission for the quarter is Camp Omega, or making beds for those that don't have a bed, or whatever. That all started with that 11th% notion that people would vote on as to what we would support with that. Remember that? Yep, it was the 11th%. So here we are with great needs as a growing congregation and a big mortgage, but they never wavered from that 11% going out the door.
My understanding from our early times was our mission was always to lift high the cross, to always be not only growing ourselves, but to let other people know what we were about, who we were, and to let them come to God, which is part of the reason that even the early constructions had a peak where the cross was always high. So if you look at our building right now, what you will notice is highest is the cross, because we lift it high so that people come to us.
Remember being pushed one time to lead a Bible study to adults at LWML at a rally, which is not my expertise. And I did a real lot of studying. I went to the pastor, and read many books and different versions of the Bible, and I'm not going to make this through because all these gals probably know more than I do. And I did a lot of praying. And when I came to do it, the Lord really led me through it. And it flowed, and the women just kind of took over and helped without them knowing what was going on. And it went very well. But that's the Lord's work.
Well, I early on I got elected to be on the parish fellowship board, the first one, and the second one, and then the third one. I got to be the director, so I was the director of the parish fellowship board for a couple of years, and that was a surprising thing. I don't see myself as a leader or a manager, but we got through it, and we had fun doing that. It was kind of figuring out the fun activities, the potlucks, and other kinds of things that we did, social things, and that was a good experience. I was also an LWML from the get-go here, and that was new for me, and I really enjoyed fellowship with the other women. That was great. I made some very good friends here at that time. And I guess that was one of my main contributions early on.
Well, when I started, I helped out with Sunday school, And I was a Sunday school teacher for maybe just one season, and then I helped out with the youth group, and then in 1994 I started working in the office, and I worked there till 2019, and for 25 years, and it was a great time. And my fondest memory of that time was I had started here, and I think I was in my second or third week here, and Judy Otto, who was the office person at that time, well, they left, and she had showed me all the things I had to do, and one of them was that I had to make out the checks for the treasurer to sign and stuff. Well, we had this machine that wrote out the checks, and I'd have to put in all the amounts, and I had a list here, make sure I had 6 things I had to do before I pressed start. And so I would do all these things, and the checks were the kind that were on a roll, so they had to fit into this machine, and the prongs had to fit the sides of the checks. Well, I would set all this up, and I'd check to make sure I did everything. I'd press start, and about 2 or 3 checks would go through. Well, then it would start being off kilter, and so since I didn't know that much about it, I naturally stopped it, and I didn't know if I could readjust the checks and start again, or if it would mess things up. So I'd take the checks out. We had a typewriter there because we didn't have a computer at the time. And I would sit down at the typewriter and I'd start typing out the checks. Pastor Tom would come in and he'd go, "Oh, I can see it's Tuesday again." So that was my fun experience of being in the office.
I remember the narthex being built, and we had Sunday school for all the kids. And I taught, I think, 5th and or 6th grade. And the first year I did that, I had a class of 2. And we met in the office, that entryway when you come in. We sat on one side, and we did our Sunday school. And as the church grew, the attendance grew, and it got to be better and better every year. And I ended up teaching down below here for the end part. When I got out of teaching, started doing more Bible study. Well, that's always been a part of what I like to do. But wonderful gift if you can teach children and you're willing to listen and talk. My goal was to get them involved, and if you do it well and you do it right, by the time we were into it 6 weeks, everybody had something to tell, and it was our Sunday school, and it was a wonderful thing.
Let's see. 40 years is a long time to try and remember things. I've been past president of the congregation. Was on the building committee for all while that existed. Might have been head of the board of elders. I just can't remember. One thing that comes out, it gives you an idea. The congregation at one time was very dissatisfied with a vicar we had. It seems he wasn't responding as well as he should. And I can remember that Pastor Tom and I had a meeting with the congregation, and we told them at the beginning that if anybody walks out to their car in the parking lot and says, "I wish they would have talked about this," this meeting would be a failure. And so as a consequence, we just had a lot of people talking about things, and that's kind of congregation and people, a collection of people that we had here all the time.
This is going to be difficult. I supported Bill in everything he did. I also listened to the sermons every Sunday really well. But the one thing that I did do, I taught Sunday school 1 year, and I went back later and apologized to all the kids. So my gifts have taken me other places during this time. So, thank you.
Well, I guess everyone kind of knows already that I was the pastor here, first part-time and then full-time for a total of about 9.5 years. But one thing that I remember well is the fact that we had a big mortgage debt, and they were paying me to, I needed a salary and all of that. So we didn't have a lot of money left over for staffing. And it was important that we had a large number of people who acted like staff people, and a few others that we hired on a part-time basis, a very part-time hourly basis. But one of the folks that I really want to mention as far as being a volunteer was Pam Radloff, who without her, we would not have had the children's ministry that we had. And man, did she put in the hours as we had, large hundreds of kids for vacation Bible schools and all kinds of things. So Pam is just a dear memory for me about the congregation. And then a couple of guys who retired, I hired them, and the congregation agreed to pay them like $4 an hour. One was Earl Nolte, and the other was Ray Feldkamp. And I didn't need assistant pastors because those guys, I just turned them loose to make calls. And they went out and made calls on people, and they said, "We don't want the money." And I said, "Yeah, but if you don't take the money, I can't tell you what to do." So I insisted that they take the cash, and if they don't want it, put it back in the offering plate. But they were big time helpers for me as a pastor, so we didn't have to invest at that point yet. We weren't ready to invest in a significant other staff. And that kind of thing. And then I also want to mention we started a child care center here, and that was a really interesting experience because probably about half of the congregation was very enthusiastic about that, and another half were not. So we didn't have a complete ride without controversy in the first 10 years. But some folks that worked really hard on that child care center were the Keenitz family. Paula, Lois, and Darlis all put in so much effort to make that thing go. And I thought it was just a premier mission while it was in existence. And wanted to mention that was it for me. That is a pleasant memory that we had that ministry going. So again, what I, in summary, would say is a lot of folks who put a lot of time in, and either as a quasi-staff person because they didn't take a cash, or because they took a little bit of money to be a staff person, which is what made this thing really work.
Okay, where do I start? I've taught Bible studies. I'm still involved with LWML, leading the Lydia Circle also. I've served as the chairman of the Board of Education on the council. I served as a secretary on the council. Worked with various groups, and even today I serve as the parliamentarian for our voters. And that all started, Helen Nolte and I had been at an LWML convention. And at that time, Earl was the president of the congregation. And so when she got home, she said to Earl, "We need a parliamentarian at our voters' meetings." And so that's where I started with that. And then later on, when I attended a voters' meeting, this was before they used the script like they do today. And I just felt that our voters' meeting could be more effective. So I contacted the then president. He called me. He was out of town on doing his work. And we spent a half an hour on the phone. When we got done, he had sent me the agenda. And when we got done with that half hour, he had a script completely written. And every president since then has used it. And so when I tell people at a parliamentary meeting that our voters' meetings normally don't last over an hour, they just sort of look at me and wonder why. And I said, because they have a script, and that is what our members anticipate. And today also, one of the things I love doing is reading, which I do about every 5 weeks or so at the church. So there's many things that you can do if you just set your mind to it.
I have a lot to say, but I won't say a lot. Put it that way. I started out and for many years was congregational secretary. It was an appointed position, and so I got to get in on a lot of the, the little meetings here and there and what was going on and sign papers and stuff like that. But from there on, all of my time, if it was music, I was involved. We had flute choirs, we had an orchestra, we had the handbells, we had cherub choir, junior choir, senior choir, male choir, and I guess there are a lot of memories, but one that I really had fun with was when that grand piano was needed. We went looking for a grand piano, and then we did a fund drive, and we did a lot of fun things in order to purchase that grand piano.
So I, as Pastor mentioned, I was part of Heart and Hand, was a teacher there for many years. But I think one of the things I remember most was I was a head of the youth board for a while. And the two things that I remember clearly was going to the National Youth Convention in Louisiana. We took 3 youth. It was just me and 3 youth at that time. And then 2 years later, I took a group to the Boundary Waters. And at that time, we had over 20 youth and adults that went to the Boundary Waters and paddled around there for a while. So. The satellite church. He's talking about the satellite church.
Yeah, that was then when BB Council was here.
Do you want me to talk about it? Let me answer the microphone. What? You did.
The church was growing, and it was decided that we needed to go out and reach other people. So they started I guess you would call it a satellite church down at the Lakeville High School. I think it was Lakeville North. And I'm not sure how long it lasted, but they did have services there every Sunday. So we had an 8 o'clock service down and here at Messiah. Let's go back. We had Saturday night, then we had 8 o'clock service here. We had Sunday school and education here at 9:15 and a service down at Lakeville. The Hope was the name of the church, and then a 10:30 service or 10:45. So we were very active in preaching the word.
Good.